Namaste, everyone. Good evening. Naveen, thank you very much. Thank you, dear panelists. It's amazing to sit amongst all of you. Uh, the session is transformation through hospitality, and some might wonder, I'm sure, that how does the transformation happen? I remember reading that almost 80 years back, a man flew on top of Florida, and he kept on flying, flew all over the U.S. till he reached Florida, and he identified. He said, "This is a place." It was all marshy land. He said, "This is the place," and he found 25,000 acres, uh, and set up something called Disney World. Walt Disney flew there. I think day before yesterday I was reading David Marriott, the chairman of Marriott, was in and around India and South Asia, and he said, and he opened a 10,000 hotel, and he said, I think in Ranthambore, and he said that it's J. Williard. He said it's dedicated to his grandfather who and his grandmother set up almost 100 years back a root beer stall in Washington, D.C. For 8 people. And he said the values they held were transparency, honesty, and hard work, which has now become a brand, the world's largest, I believe, 10,000 hotels. In the context of transformation, these 10,000 hotels are 10% of the world's branded share, but 1% of the total inventory of hotels, which is at, I'm assuming, almost 1 million. And employing almost 330 million people around the world. Just for the purposes, and Naveen was very rightly saying, how does it stimulate? I think every 100,000 rooms which would get added in India, if you take an average cost of 1 CR, would stimulate or require 1 lakh crore of capital. 1 lakh crore of capital. So India requires branded rooms of almost 1 million. Even if you say they are greenfield investment, you're looking at 10 lakh crore of capital which requires to come in. So, ladies and gentlemen, how Mark Twain said, let not education interfere your learning process. And here we have amazing people that we can learn from over the next couple of minutes. Let me start. Which order? Shall I start left to right? Yeah, is it okay if I start left to right and then we can go right to left? So I have just put down some points to ask. So I was recently reading about this gentleman, the Cisco president, Jitu Patel. He's a president globally. He said when he joined Cisco, his vision was, Cisco is a network provider worldwide. He said his vision was to make it a design-led company, only second next to Apple in the world. That was his personal goal, and today he says he's closer to his goal. Nikhil, I believe Radisson has set a goal of, I think, 500 hotels by 2030. Every investment, every hotel stimulates economic development. Tell us the journey and how will it stimulate that, and what's your goal going forward?
Well, it's because of shoulders of 2 people actually in the room, Zubin's on the panel and Mr. Kachru, who actually started it. So 28 years in the country, 240 odd hotels at the moment. We have a very strong base, and we are only consolidating on that base. And a bet that Radisson took, that you now see other international brands taking, is the tier 2, tier 3, and flag planters in locations which are leisure locations. So all those bets are paying off. And that's really the growth story. And we are growing with Bharat. So if I can say that 500 seems to be a fairly achievable number because of the base where we are today.
That's fantastic. I think the whole concept of taking a bet and that too going through tier 2, tier 3 cities, I think that's an amazing goal setting. Rahul, there is a saying in Spanish that when you do bullfighting, the bull is your partner and also the person and also someone you have to kill. It's a collaborator and your competitor. I think in hotel development, the management contractors and the owners probably have somewhat similar relationship. The profit share, you have to work with the management contractor to create a great asset and yet have enough tension to create the right value share. Rahul, how, as our depth and scale of hotels develop in the country, how do you think the relationship between and as hotels are going asset light, brands are going asset light, how is the relationship evolving between owners and managers, and where do you see it reaching? Do you think we are already at a tipping point, or do you see it becoming healthier with more value share, more collaboration, and yet enough tension to have the right value share?
Thank you, Ashish. And good evening, everyone. It's good to be in this room. I think we don't have enough time to be delivering tension. So I think because we are at the infancy, the entire time of the industry is actually saying, how do we capture this opportunity going forward? And you alluded to two stakeholders, the owners and the brands. I think what we are going to actually see is value creation happen throughout the spectrum. Not only the brands, how is it going to deliver actually value for customers, for communities, for institutions, and for India as a whole. Because this sector and this asset class is now resetting return expectations. Instead of just being an alternate asset class, it's coming into its own. And what's happening very interestingly in India, that instead of this asset class being cyclical, as it has been over the past decades, it's actually becoming a linear growth asset class, which is going to be delivering returns which are going to be inflation plus. So you will now see much greater activity in the country. We are also going to be seeing much more institutional investment flowing through. And beyond just the owners and managers, there is going to be great value creation throughout. The biggest value creation this asset class is going to be doing for India is going to be the creation of jobs. And every rupee invested in hospitality actually delivers 1.3 times that of a rupee invested elsewhere. So actually for delivering jobs, this industry sits right at the forefront. And when you speak of tension, the interesting tension or the interesting impetus for development, one very big macro in India is urbanization, which is, as we know, is the underlying thesis for promoting domestic travel. But with urbanization also comes the issue of jobs migrating to big cities. So one big allure of this sector is that it retains jobs where people are. And the last thing, why I said that with this becoming a linear thing and not cyclical and driving inflation plus growth, when you see other asset classes, even if it is retail or resi or commercial or long gestation asset classes like data centers and all that, people are realizing that the opportunity to reset rents there is long term, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. So what happened in US from the 80s to 90s and then it petered off post 90s was that hotel rents rose in a linear fashion. New York was a great example. Then if we look towards Asia, for example, Singapore starting 90s or Japan from 70s till now, and with the yen now going down even though it's become easier, same phenomena is going to happen in India, which is the ability of the sector to reset rents every day. And while there will be some places, if you get too much into tier 2, and there may be other occasions, but what we are going to actually see is mainstay focus on hotels as an asset class, great investments flowing into the asset class, and India gaining jobs because of hotels and hospitality.
That's correct. I think it's a very interesting perspective, economically, virtuous cycle which gets created. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Rahul. Ajay, you are a person who has stimulated the management contracting revolution in the country. Would you recommend new businessmen and new recruits into the industry to follow the path that you took? Or do you think that opportunity is tapering off? Can there be another Ajay Bakaya in the making, or multiple more?
So I'll talk a little bit on this. Well, there can be many more Ajay Bakayas. There's no issue with that. I think you talked about management contracts and friction and the bullfight. It doesn't have to be that. There's no reason for the owner and the operator to be sitting on different sides of the fence. And it happens for 2 or 3 key reasons. One is a lack of clarity in explaining what exactly you're going to do. You can have agreements and you can have agreements. So I read an agreement recently of a company that says, and this is up there at the top in charging a bomb, that we shall be operating your hotel on your behalf. If something goes wrong, we're not responsible. Now, if you have those agreements, obviously you're going to have problems down the line. Today's owners are much better educated than they were 10 or 20 or 30 years ago. They are well traveled, and it's incumbent on the operator to explain that agreement before you get down to even taking things seriously, or explain what it means to have somebody else run your hotel. So we say often enough, look, are you sure? If you have a property in a city that's going to be run largely on banquets and shadis and shadis and shadis, I'm not going to contribute too much to your room business at all. I'll bring in processes, I'll bring in systems, and you will ask me a year or 2 down the line, what are you doing for me? Because I'm getting the business myself. So as long as those things are discussed and debated and written down as explicitly as possible, you don't have an issue. Problems happen when your agreements are too one-sided. Any deal which works only for one side has to have problems. And so I think that's the thing. Is a management contract a good option, or is it a way to develop? It's probably the most difficult working model. And the issue, another of the key issues where things fail or go wrong is for the operator to not say, I made a mistake.
True.
You know, we screwed up, we messed up, and we're going to fix it. This is what I'm doing now. Because the initial reaction of everyone, including myself, is, oh, no, you know, it wasn't really us, this wasn't right, that you said 100 things, but 95 of them are not right, only 5 are right. The thing is to say, look, we made a mistake. We messed up. We didn't read the market properly, or we didn't get the right people, or somebody screwed up. But this is what we're doing to make sure things we fix what went wrong, and the same thing doesn't happen again. So if you have all those things in line, I think a management contract model is a beautiful model. It works for everyone because the owner has enough time to do other things and grow. And the operator, if he delivers well, has more and more hotels to take care of. So it's a fantastic model. I'm all for it. But it's essentially got to work for both sides, and it's got to work with a high level of transparency and honesty.
That's absolutely correct. Anyone would anyone want to have a say in this point? It's a very critical point. Yes, sir?
No, I think what Mr. Bakaya said, I completely agree with it. And first of all, I think the market development models have become far too sophisticated now, and the market has evolved. So, you know, just labeling it as hotel, owner-operator relationship is a management contract or a franchise agreement. You know, I think that's a consequence of the demand and the supply within the development, opportunities and formats. So I think ultimately it is about trust on both sides, and I absolutely echo everything Mr. Bakaya has said. You know, the difference between success and failure is almost always about either of the parties taking the step forward and going a little bit beyond the black and white to find a reasonable solution. And by the way, that's also true in life. So, so I completely agree with what Mr. Bakaya
Can't be a win-lose, has to be a win-win outcome. Anyone?
Yeah, Ashish, it's all about, and Mr. Bakaya kind of alluded to it, it's the commercial capability and the operational excellence that a brand really brings. And it is a two-way relationship. It is a marriage, and you do have your ups and downs with some owners, and some owners don't. depending on how hands-on they are. But yeah, I mean, as an organization, we've been going from strength to strength is also because of our commercial capability and the tools that we have today, or the focus on GOP, right? So at Radisson, we say for our managed hotels, we should be at a GOP of 50% or in that range. So owners like to hear that because at the end of the day, it's more money in the bank, and they can service the debt, if there is any debt, far faster than what they had imagined.
Ashish, I'll add to that. I think revenue cures all evils, right? So achieving performance and exceeding budgets is a given, but ultimately people do business with people, you know, and that is, you might have a perfectly great business relationship where you are delivering the metrics, but if it is a difficult one, then that also will not last very long.
The people relationship can only hold so far.
And that's true in India and anywhere else in the world.
Rahul, you want to have things? We already had the same.
And you know, you refer to the bull and the matador, and you know, I don't know if you know, but we have a relationship. They are, you know, the Hilton in Mumbai. I don't think we ever felt like either a bull or the.
Who's a bull here?
I don't think that is.
See, I think this relationship is actually symbiotic, where each partner contributes to the desired outcome. And effectively, you know, the relationship, like Nikhil and Zubin rightly said, one is the performance matrix, and along with that, what has to actually be invested is the right chemistry, what Zubin spoke of, because in business we are eventually dealing with people. And a great point made by Mr. Bakaya is to be truthful. We are all humans, you know. If we make a mistake, to own up to that mistake and then work forward. And a great sentiment when we work with partners is to say, how do you help the other get the best return on their time?
Return on time.
Return on time. So, if the brand is going to the asset owner and saying, because I am going to be managing your asset, it is the best return on your time, and the asset owner profiles may be different.
True.
The asset owner may be an individual. The asset owner may be an individual running some other business. The asset owner may have a collection of hotels. The asset owner may be an institutional investor. If, let's say, it's an institutional investor, let's say, for example, any institutional investor, tomorrow if it's a Brookfield or a Blackstone or anyone for that matter, and if they are tying up with any brand, is that brand delivering them the best return on their time? I once worked with an asset owner, and you laugh at this. He was a sugarcane owner in North India somewhere. When he had come to me initially, I actually looked at that hotel and I told him कि I don't think this is going to make much money. So he said, तो आपको क्या लगता है होटल नहीं करना चाहिए? So I told him कि देखो इतना पैसा नहीं. But the story is, anyway, that hotel did make money. And then when he called me for his daughter's wedding, we became friends because he said, you know, this. But he told me, he said कि अरे आपने तो बोला था ये होटल पैसा नहीं बनाएगा. This does make money. And where I went wrong was, that was a tier 2 town. I had not accounted for the social revenue and banqueting revenue and all of that. And while that was that, I asked him, I said कि ठीक है अगर वो था नहीं बनाना था तो आपने फिर होटल क्यों बनाया? He said क्योंकि पंडित जी लड़की के लिए लड़का अच्छा मिलेगा.
Absolutely, I think.
So he was a sugar mill owner, and you know, because when you are a hotel owner, you have a different social standing, and the hotel made money, which was incidental. But the point in this story is, we are not competitors. We are all participants in an ecosystem.
True.
So if we realize this is not a win-lose battle, it's a win-win partnership.
True.
If a brand is going to be helping the portfolio owner become stronger, the portfolio owner, when they have a stronger balance sheet, they are going to thank the brand. So I think if that trust is reciprocated on both sides, then relationships become stronger.
100%.
If somebody is in it to say, I'm going to make better fees or do this and that, you know, it doesn't work in the long term.
Absolutely correct. It's 100% trust-based. Sorry, Yumi, you got left out of the hospitality discussion. They're we talk about make in India, but there is this brand which is made in India, and it's taken over the world. And all credit to VFS. I think a big clap for what VFS is. It's stormed the whole world, and thank you for making India so proud. All of you must have been seeing recently these Japanese tourists who have been traveling in the football matches. They've been cleaning up their own stuff, and then you have these stories coming out of Indian tourists who are, demonstrating a different set of attributes whenever they're traveling. Tell me something, Yumi. As we talk about transformation of India, and we have phenomenal brands and businesses which are taking that. Do you think this aspect of the heterogeneity of Indian, how do I put it delicately, heterogeneity of Indian traveler, do you think it might impact the whole transformation story of the way that we are seeing? I mean, you deal with practically every tourist in the world. Even before they travel, they come to you.
So I think when we talk about travel from India in the outbound perspective, we try to kind of box it into just tourism. But mobility as a whole from India is a lot more than just tourism. So this is a big source market for skilled labor, even blue-collared labor, whether we are sending them to Saudi or any of the Gulf countries, or students, right? I mean, student is a huge sector where people, all the governments are attracting students from India. So it's not just tourists. But I think on what you said, I think there's been too much of, social media on all of these. But overall, I don't think so. I mean, it should impact any kind of transformation. That's more behavior, right? And I think there was another story about some other kind of community behaving even worse than the Indians. I think that's too much of social media story. Right, yeah. But having said that, I know amidst hoteliers, but on a lighter note, we've also been building visa centers, not hotels. Yes. And somewhere the objective, or we still meet those objectives of ease of travel, accessibility, people getting a service infrastructure which is convenient, comfort. True. And I think from a transformation perspective, I think, of course, for VFS, it's been 25 years, and that was, as you rightly said, and thanks for that, was the biggest innovation or transformation for people, not just in India, but across 71 countries that we...
It's fabulous.
With 71 governments and 168 countries that we work for. I think that transformation now over 25 years, how the demographics and everything is changing. Sitting with the hoteliers now, I was thinking that we also have to bring the hospitality mindset, into our visa services now, because customer, their journey and how they experience our visa centers is also critical for us. So it's interesting to hear from everybody today in the previous panels, etc.
No, you're absolutely correct. I recall I had to travel to China very urgently, and the visas were an issue, but they had a facility called fast processing, value added, and it happened within 24 hours for China. And the service setup was very experiential. Obviously, there was a different pricing set for it, but I think what VFS has done and taken the Indian experience to the world and showed how we can excel, I think it's fabulous. But, as you say in hotels, every employee has a marketing responsibility, and I think while you said that not everyone who travels, this 30-odd million who travel out are tourists, they are students and businessmen. I think every one of us have a brand responsibility for India. Anyone would want to weigh in on this point of how this might, or how we can this impact our transformation? Please.
I think the answer is education.
Education.
More and more and more and more. And a certain greater sense of pride in being who you are, where you come from.
Yeah.
The Japanese become ambassadors for their country, every single one of them, because they're fiercely proud of their heritage and what they stand for. So I think we've got to build in more and more of that. And it will happen. It will happen gradually. Transformation is going to be better rather than worse. So hopefully we'll hear less and less of incidents of people misbehaving. Mind you, people from different countries misbehave. You've got hooliganism all the way from the UK that's been there for the last so many decades. But I think it'll change. India is changing gradually, but very definitely. And people are less traveled. They'll be better educated, better traveled, and they'll know what is expected. So it's something that needs, again, communication all the time, more and more and more and more. And we owe it upon ourselves and all us agencies and travel agents and even VFS to a certain extent to educate people when they're going abroad as to what is expected of them. Yeah. They don't know. If I don't know what to do. What's right or wrong.
Do's and don'ts. Anyone else would want to share thoughts?
So Ashish, I am on the UP Chief Minister's Economic Advisory Group.
Wow. Okay.
On the tourism side. So one thing we realized that there are 3 things that UP needs to do, and I think that holds true for India. Those 3 things are Sabhyata, Suraksha and Safai. So civility, safety. If women are out on the street, are they safe? And Safai. Do we have toilets? Do we have ample parking? Is crowd management in place? Some very basic stuff. So while this may be symptomatic to fix, I think actually across India what we need is the right intervention in education. Yeah. Child is the father of man. Tourism has to be embedded in the school curriculum in India as a credit earning subject. So school students have to be given a tour of their cities. So primary students, a tour of their cities. Secondary students, a tour of the identified monuments and historic places in that state. And senior school students, a tour of monuments of national importance. And once we define this, it will actually start defining what the character of India would be like and what is it that we are imparting. So what should our monuments be? Our monument should be, for example, Sriharikota. Our monument should be the Sardar Patel statue. Our monument should be the parliament. So 2-3 things will happen along with that. One is creating a cadre of tourism teachers. Not only just for jobs creation, because yes, it will lead in each state for certified tourism cadre teachers. And tourism then becomes a subject which is getting into national consciousness from the very start. And today when we speak of national integration and saying India has to be away from caste, creed and religion, how do we use our national monuments to generate pride? Sure. If we go to US today, you go to Florida, there is ticketed entry to the Space Museum. They will show you shuttle launchers and all of that. It's a nice thing that families do. How do kids go to Sriharikota and have that amazement? They should get into an IIT, have an amazement. They should get into the parliament, have that amazement. And also, when they go from north to south and east to west, if we are speaking of cleanliness, Swachh Bharat will not be when parents tell their kids you don't litter. Swachh Bharat will be when kids start telling parents don't throw trash out of a moving car. True. And in India there are examples. Some may not know, the cleanest village in Asia is Molilong in Meghalaya. 0 crime village, 0 litter, because the community takes pride. So while we have our last mile challenges, the government can only set a framework. The real thing happens when we start taking pride in our heritage. Correct. So people have to be exposed to our heritage. We have to start taking pride in our heritage. And that's how we will actually bring about Sabhyata, Suraksha and Safai.
Absolutely. On a totally different note, and a somewhat pessimistic one, the two biggest impediments to any transformation in this country are filth and garbage, yes, and our traffic. Yes. I haven't seen worse in the entire world and traveled a fair bit. The poorest villages in Africa are cleaner and the traffic is much more civil. So sabhyata aur safai kahan se aayegi yaar if I don't see it around me? No, the kids are growing up seeing dirt. I bicycle from Gurgaon all the way into Rajasthan. There is garbage on both sides of the road, and and we got used to it. We are accepting that as a normal, and it cannot happen only by a sense of dignity in your civilization. The government's got to do something about it. And these are two things we need to tackle. Garbage is the biggest one. If we eliminate garbage from this country, we have something special.
Education and enablement have to go at the same time. Both.
I'll be
Sorry, Ashish, just 30 seconds. Something very interesting actually happened last week. The Supreme Court last week has given a landmark judgment saying walkability is a fundamental right for people. So Supreme Court has told town planners to put walkability in there. So actually, it's right what Ajay is saying. Yes, what's going to happen from the government, because that will set the structure and expectation, but it is to say what happens in our schools and families and at home. That will bring about a change in India.
It's a very big challenge. Do you want to add any point?
I mean, I think most of it is said. I think the last mile, municipalities have to take ownership, and it's extremely important. You land at T3, it's all beautiful till you hit Mahipalpur, right? So the last mile is extremely important. As if you're coming in from a foreign country, the contrast is just too large.
I think we should send tourists who have gone to the last mile only.
The last mile is extremely important.
You want to add a point?
No, I think enough has been said. We need to move on.
All right. There was this highway, small.
Clearly the most passionate topic on the panel. So.
True. Okay, so we had.
By the way, I could say a lot, but I don't want to.
No, but I want to say something. While, of course, because of the social media, this thing became a big thing about Indian tourists. But I have a very different opinion. I wonder why actually the tourists behave much better in countries abroad, and they follow the rules and they keep it clean. That was just I think viral, it went sensation. And then the thought is, why can't we do the same when we are back in our country? Why can't we, as you said, take pride and keep our country clean? But they behave they follow the rules of wherever they are.
I think reality and
I
perception
think that was just
both
more of a
play
viral
part,
thing.
but at some point, the reality catches up. True.
See,
Sorry.
I
No, carry on.
changed my mind,
Yeah.
See, it's just a very interesting topic, right? And I think having a point of view is better than not having one. But, I think I'm finding this conversation a little hypocritical. I mean, if you look at this issue that we have, we are dealing with roti kapda makan in this country. It's a 1.6 billion people population, right? And tell me if any of those daily wage laborers care about cleanliness on the roads,
Their challenges are separate.
right? So, and I will not delve deeper into this. I think the average per capita income in India today has finally started inching towards $2,000, right? If you look at the developed countries, it's 10 times more, maybe 15 times more, right? So I think we have a long way to go.
We have, it's a journey,
It starts with awareness, starts with questioning. We are questioning it on the panel. I think nobody disagrees in the audience.
Yeah.
And that's a great start already, right? The good news is that I feel that the next generation coming up is taking all of these things to heart. I mean, you look at the kids in schools today, and they will be talking about, and really, and doing things about it, right? Not only talking about sustainability, for example, they will be taking bucket baths, to preserve water, I know my daughter at home switches off the air conditioning even if it is 40 degrees outside. Wow. Unless she really needs to. She sleeps with the AC off at night, and she has no reason to do that. So, and again, I don't think it's her. I think it's generally this generation is more aware, right? So, so I think we'll have to be patient. And by the way, we've just been 75, close to 80 years into independence now, right? Look at some of these other countries have been 250 years of freedom and greatness, right? So I think we will get there. We should continue to do what we are doing. And again, if you go to some of these secondary, tertiary cities in India, go to a Bhopal, for instance, or go to some of the others. Go to Surat, for instance, and many more like that. They're actually very clean cities. So we are dealing with a population explosion, in cities like Delhi, which have taken off without a proper master plan in place. And then what do you do in a Delhi, Mumbai cities, Bangalore cities like that, where the population density designed for the city is far lesser than the number of people living there right now. There has to be what's happening right now, right? So I'm sorry, I took it off tangent
No, you're
completely,
absolutely correct, and we have
couldn't
still
stop
not
myself.
asked you your question, but to just cap it, what Zubin said. Other day I was traveling on the highway to a client's workshop, a factory very far in the village, and there was a shop I stopped at, very small shop. The shop owner had a small signage. It said, "Jal hai to kal hai," and it was a tier 5 or 6 city. I think that gives a lot of confidence. Yes, there are challenges at the civic level for all of us, but it's a journey. Okay, Zubin, so your question, you have just launched a new brand, Spark by Hilton. Congratulations. The question which comes to my mind, I think 120 years back, Henry Ford said you can have any brand, any car as long as it's black, But now there was only one color. How do you, with so many brands, how do you as an entity differentiate among so many competitive brands? What's the brand, where is the brand start point and end point? I know you have Deepika Padukone as a communicator, but the fact is, if you combine all of the enterprises, there are so many brands at play. How does brand differentiation come in?
I think it's, fairly straightforward. Hilton plays with 10 brands in India. Globally, Hilton has 24 or 26 brands. Some of them very recently launched. And Hilton has doubled the number of brands in India from 5 to 10 over the last 2 years. I just mentioned in my last response that we are a 1.6 billion population in this country. And, there is a certain segment of the society which has limited disposable income towards staying in hospitality, products. And then there is also the other end of the spectrum. So yes, we did launch the Sparks. We have actually, between Spark and Hampton, we've announced plans for almost 400 hotels over the last 2 years. The first 2 Sparks already opened in Goa and Bangalore. More will open. But this is a product that caters to the premium economy customer, which is, by the way, India is a mid-market growth story as we go ahead. We've all seen it time and time again, right? And I think that market continues to grow in our country. And hence, we feel there is immense opportunity
For new brands?
For new brands. And you spoke about Spark, so I'll address about Spark, right? And I think the number of markets that have opened up in India over the last 5 years has actually doubled, right? So we're going through the length and breadth of the country. And it is also about what the disposable propensities of the customer to pay. At the same time, at the other end of the extreme, we've also signed and now actually getting into initial construction stages, 3 Waldorf Astorias. And these are going to be hotels which will be sitting right amongst the top of the comp sets and catering to the highest end of the customer base, right? So I think there is enough opportunity in this market. India as a destination is growing, and there's enough stats out there which will tell you that demand continues to outstrip supply. India demand is growing at 12% annually. Supply grows at 9%. Will continue to grow. And this market has been in the 70% range over the last couple of years. I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon.
So I'm opening this up again. The question was, do you feel there is enough scope for new brands, or there is, or brands will have to, how do brands differentiate? Or as Zubin said, we are a mid-market, we are scope to absorb more new brands. Anyone has a say on this? Any thoughts? And we come to you, Yummi, from a monopolistic position, or do you have as a single brand? Do you also have a thought on it? Anyone, please?
No, I mean, we're fairly simpler. We have only 10 brands, and 9 of those brands are in this country. And we differentiate on the scale. So whether it's economy, mid-scale, upscale, upper upscale, and luxury. So we are today present across all that. And in fact, we created a brand just for this country called Parkin and Suites at the mid-scale segment. And it's a India first brand from that perspective. And we're taking it now global. Of course, we have a soft brand called Radisson Individuals. And in the luxury end that we are now focusing on is the Radisson collection. We've got one in Srinagar. We've got more opening, Mysore, Bombay, Hyderabad, and so on and so forth.
So
Udaipur,
different micro
Jaipur.
markets can have different brand requirements, customize any. I'm just adding
Well,
a point
I
there.
mean, Ashish, I mean, the market is big enough, right? I mean, 350 million middle-class travelers today in the country and growing, right? So the spend is there. So yeah, you have, depending, if it's spiritual travel, you're seeing 3 generations traveling to a location. You don't see 3 generations going to Goa, but you see them going to Katra and Ayodhya, for example, right? Or Amritsar.
I think, Ashish,
Yeah.
you can't just broad stroke it and say you're introducing so many brands, is there a scope and a market for it?
Okay.
I think it has to be a scientific process.
Of course.
And I am also sensing there's a great deal of maturity that's entering this market. If you look at the number of institutional investors that is entering this market, there is a science behind the madness. And I can assure you that all of us, all the brands sitting on this table here, right? There is enough science that goes behind the analysis of bringing in a new brand into a new market, right?
Creating a new brand entirely.
Yes. So I think it's not just about introducing new brands and filling up the market space, because ultimately those brands have to be successful. Those hotels have to be successful,
Of course.
and the entrepreneurial money behind those hotels has to earn a return, right? So yeah.
Ajay, you have a say.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons more and more brands have come in is because companies want to operate on a larger spectrum. So they're saying, if I'm operating here, I want to make sure I don't lose something that's up there or something that's down here, which is fine. And with that logic, you'll probably see more and more brands come in. Some of the organizations have reached a certain level of maturity, and some others are in that growing phase. You will see more brands, as long as those brands are clearly defined. And I can't say that for all the brands existing in the country today, because the customer's got to understand the difference between an A, B, and C coming from the same stable. And as long as the push is not from a development perspective, where if I'm the development guy in the field, I say, can't afford to lose it, let's stick something on it. So as long as the brand definition is clear, and the motive is clear, there is scope and much more for brands to come in.
Rahul, you have a say on this? No? Sorry? No? You pass? Okay. I think that's right. Institutional maturity is coming in, but sometimes it also leads to consolidation. And as is one is seeing in FMCG markets, they are forcing large entities to shake off some brands which are not meeting economic criteria. But as Zubin, you rightly said, we are a growing market. There's enough in large, probably market fit, different ownership models, different consumer requirements. Absolutely. We start with you now. But before that, can I ask the organizer how much more time do we have?
11 minutes and 55
Oh,
seconds.
okay. Good. All right, great. So good. We'll come back to Nikhil, you again. There is this whole concept of, and talking about branding, it's a very opportune. Many years back, this man started a brand called, he said there's no brand in oil. And he started a brand called Marico, Harsh Mariwala. And today, if anyone wants to buy hair oil or something, Marico becomes the first thought which goes to, and then tell me, all of you are creating a brand revolution in the country, and we are just around 0.2 million branded hotels and almost 4 million unbranded not hotels, rooms, 4 million unbranded rooms. There's a pace of reflagging, there's a pace of consolidation, brands unbranded becoming. How do you see this accelerating? How do you see more and more unbranded coming into the branded fold, which into the country, which leads to the whole transformation?
So Ashish, one thing I'd like to highlight is all global brands when they come into the country, one secret ingredient is localization, and that's an extremely important part, where domestic players are far more competitive than you, whether it's your royalty fees or just the flexibility that they allow an owner to have. So that is one important piece. On conversions, for global brands is a little different, and let me expand on this, is the fire life safety norms that we have are different from the domestic norms. So they are global fire life safety norms, and that filter becomes an extremely important filter for us to look at conversions when conversions are happening. And these are independent hotel owners, right? And you see hotels I saw a drawing yesterday that came to my table, 110 rooms in Delhi, but no BOH, no back of the house,
No, at the house.
right? And he's built a decent 3.5, 4-star hotel. But obviously there's lack of understanding. We cannot flag that hotel because there is no back of the house. So employees take center stage for us even at the design stage, right? And that's an extremely important point. In fact, just this weekend, we have about 19,000 team members now, and for the first time in Great Place to Work, we made it to the top 100 companies to work for, and this is across industries. Of course, Numero Uno is also sitting on this panel.
Congrats to both of you.
But yeah, I mean, for us, it's a big moment, and that ethos needs to continue. So whether it's fire life safety, whether it's employee engagement, or just having the right space for the employees, become extremely strong fundamentals to flag a hotel.
I think it's a very important point. Localization and the fact that you bring in your ethos is a very key aspect of transformation. Anyone else wants to say on this? I think all of you will probably have a thought. Ajay?
Yeah, two questions. One's are more individual hotels going to go into brands, and the other one is which are the brands that are going to grow. So the brands with a certain philosophy behind them are going to grow faster. There are lots of brands around the world that weren't set up to make billions of dollars. Steve Jobs didn't start Apple thinking he's going to be a multi-billion-dollar company one day. Their focus was, how can you make people's lives simpler? And that ethos has stayed. So if a brand comes with some kind of philosophy that they understand clearly themselves within the organization and are able to communicate and execute properly, they have a much better chance of growing, whatever it may be.
I would say, Ashish, absolutely, I agree. With what has been said by Mr. Bakaya and Nikhil, I think there has to be at a certain level, on the branded side, there has to be some purity at some level from a customer point of view, where the end result of that experience is when that customer walks out of the hotel, he or she still thinks that, yes, this is the branded hotel that I signed up for, right? Let's say this is ultimately, this is the Hilton Hotel, at the end of the day. So there has to be some purity in that experience, and a little bit of that is around the hard touches. A lot of that is also about the soft touches, guest experience, team member engagement, how they engage with the guests, etc., etc. But ultimately, there has to be a certain basic denominator across the stay, which calls it, let's say, uniquely Hilton or uniquely something else, right? Yeah. So I think that's important. Sure. Ultimately, and I believe in this very strongly, in the development business, in the hotel development business, whatever you do today is going to come back to you, whether good or bad, in the next 5 years, right? Interesting. And I think the consequence of whatever is happening today, I think that is yet to be seen, right? And I think that is going to be another conversation in a few years, and hopefully things turn out for the best. But I think one has to be pure, at least to some extent, when brand conversions are happening, and when you're saying converting individual properties into branded hotels, great. But there has to be the customer experience at the end of it cannot be compromised.
Correct. Rahul, you have any say on this? You have any thought? No? Yummi, you have any say on this?
On the movement from independent hotels to brands or chain hotels, the catalyst is going to be distribution strength and AI and technology. Sure. Because individual hotels will just find the tech part unaffordable, and you can't manage without the distribution, however good you might be. Absolutely.
Rahul, worldwide there is this whole talk of patient capital, where patient capital there are some investors are looking for larger returns, but then there are also activist investors who are coming in. From a development point of view, how do you see this playing out in India? And it's very critical as brands become more asset light, and the whole development story, the cash flow recovery, etc., shifts to developers, and they have to be backed by equity, which is patient capital or activist capital. How do you see this development story playing out in India? Do you see it more patient? Do you see it more impatient?
See, the first thing which actually is going to happen in India is that with the government's focus on improving ease of doing business and with the realization that hotels is critical for jobs generation, this is also bringing about a shift in the governance and also our statutory framework. It's slow, but definitely it's happening there. And like other asset classes, the capital stack which is looking at hospitality is of different types. You know, starting from debt, and large credit funds are coming into the country. Also hedge, and also if you see even our mutual funds. You know, today our run rate of just domestic capital into mutual funds is about $2 billion a month. So lots of mutuals coming into hotels, and obviously also long-term people coming in. So if you could plot it on the X and Y axis, so you may have people who are looking at trading volumes for short-term arbitrage, you may have people looking at credit, and then even from an institutional perspective, capital may be, we have to understand where is it coming from. Capital may be coming in from funds which have a defined life cycle. And capital may also be coming in from funds which have a perpetual or revolving life cycle. This is on the x-axis. And on the y-axis, you can be actually making returns from development. You can be making returns from flipping assets, pre-maturity or post-maturity. And you could also be looking at investment into trading stock of listed vehicles. So if we do this X and Y axis, they will be, each sort of capital will get different sorts of grids to invest in.
True.
Other thing which is happening to India now is that earlier the risk attached to Asian investments and in India was about, let's say, another 2.5%. Plus rupee depreciates about 2.5% each time. So earlier, if you were looking at, so typically, let's say, if global capital was looking at 6 to 7% return, and if you, yes, and then by the time you started looking at short-term funds, they were looking at, effectively, it became 12%. Within that 12%, you put in 2.5% for risk, you put in 2.5% in there, it became like 16, 17%.
The equity add-on.
Yeah. So the good news is that 16, 17, while too many people may not say, it's at 15. However, in India, when we are looking at 18, we need to realize that actually to dollar you are delivering only 18. What I'm hoping now is that as credit agencies improve India's credit score, as we can demonstrate better returns to investors, our risk profile also improves. While the rupee depreciation goes in there. And India, actually, the total trading volumes are not that big. So the one big thing the government can really do is create enough opportunities. So when you look at AeroCity-like assets, when you look at big PPP opportunities, those are places which have the ability to get in lots of capital into the country.
Absolutely. And there is so much of a deepening and widening of the capital markets, and especially the asset class of hospitality. Ma'am, we have, it says 2 minutes, 1 minute. Can we take 10 more minutes? Is that okay with you? No? Okay. So we don't have time. All right. So, all right. So we don't have time. It's cut off. I thought
that no was very loud, by the way.
Yeah. I think it should have been wiser to take apology than, take a permission. Anyways, recently Warren Buffett retired, and someone asked him, when you took Greg Chappell as a CEO, what did you see? He said, he's like me and he's better. Now we have a legend here, Ajay. Ajay, if you will choose a successor, what will be your criteria of choosing a successor who can carry forward the excellence that you have created?
Well, first of all, we already have a successor.
Okay.
He's been in the system 4 years, Jatin Khanna.
Okay, Jatin.
But the criteria for anyone is, can you carry the spirit and the ethos and the basics that took the company to where it is today, and add a layer of tech, add a layer of modernity while you take things forward. the company's got to grow. The essence is, can you keep adding to top line EBITDA?
That's correct. That's correct. I think I'll not go into more details on this. Yummi, VFS has demonstrated a brand excellence that no one else has demonstrated. Do you have any quick lessons on how can hospitality pick up as it creates further penetration to unorganized markets? Lessons from to becoming a global brand.
I don't think lessons, because VFS, the kind of business that we do is very different than what the hotels are doing in a way, right? Because we are directly working with the government. What has worked for us and the way we have kind of added on to so many client governments across the globe is, I think, the ethos which we started at the company with the trust, technique and technology, transparency, that we never changed as our basic fundamental, values. And that value is it's kind of so now culturally there that I think that trust with the governments I'm talking about, applicants, they may have certain experiences, but what we have been contracted for with the government, I don't think there has been any incident where we have sort of not adhered to that, what we believed in and what we committed in terms of trust and transparency. That is there very much with our governments. And maybe when you're talking about brand, as a consumer, I go to a brand or I go to a hotel because my experience and trust in the experience is there, right? So I think that's what I think, for me, I don't know.
So it's the final point here. Someone was doing a documentary on the French Marine Commandos, and they said, you guys are training so quietly. When you see the American commandos training, they're shouting and screaming and abusing each other. So the French commando head, he said, we don't need to shout and scream at each other. Unlike Americans, we learn by being polite and we can still have the same result. So the last question is to Zubin. The fact that all of you have said about branding and the fact that brand ethos have to be carried, they carry it forward through people. How do you think, and how is people excellence being built? End of the day, people, we are all very intangible, we are very volatile sometimes. How do you create that excellence in service delivery while accounting for people's individuality?
You have to give them space and you have to let them do what they're doing, and you have to build a culture that builds mutual respect and excellence. And that's how culture isn't built overnight. And I think how do you do it is not probably how I can answer it for you. I think it's people do business with people. People serve people, and it always starts with that. My mantra is personally over-invest in the hiring process. Make sure you spend a lot of time getting the right talent which fits into the values of the organization. And if that means you have to meet 100 people to choose one, that's all right. But let me promise you that one person is going to make organizational impact. And then that one person is going to get 10 more people like themselves. And that's how organizations are built over time. And there has to be, when times are dark, and we all saw it in the room, COVID, when it happened to all of us, impacted us. I think all of us as the hospitality industry, and I think our values are fairly similar, in those dark times, our values were our moral compass, right? And I don't think any of us let people go. We did what we all had to do, and collectively as an industry, there was no competition, right? So that's how I would imagine. Get the right people, focus on the right values, make the connect, and then let it grow.
We are a people-intensive industry. Any strategy, any design, any vision can only be achieved if people execute it. At Chanakya Puri, you have this statue of Gandhiji walking for the Dandi March, and I think walk with me is the right thing. I think today we have learned standing on the shoulders of these leaders. Thank you. You have been an excellent audience.
Something, and I would like to quote Mr. Bakaya. I learned this from him actually, and he said it. I don't think you would remember, but a few years ago you said it in a casual conversation, and he said, "Fish stinks from the top." So I think leadership starts at the top. So, and I admire this man sitting here, and I admire that man sitting there, Mr. Kachru,
Big
both
clap
my
to
mentors. Thank
the
you.
legends sitting here. I think that's where transformation begins. Thank you. You've been a lovely audience. Thank you so much for being such patient speakers. Please give a big hand to our lovely speakers. Thank you, Naveen. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.